What's up, everyone? This is going to be your last lesson of this first week of online SFCA Virtual. You're going to be completing lesson 5, which is going over variables. You can see here in the overview, it says this lesson introduces variables as a way to label a number in a program or save a randomly generated value. You're going to learn a basic description, and then as you get further into it, you're going to see how this is used for things like increasing score or adding or subtracting the number of lives of your game character. So again, things that you guys see as you go through and play different games on your computer or some other device. Okay. So again, variables, it says, are a placeholder for a piece of information that can change. So if I'm starting a game and I want, you to start with a score of 0, I'm going to set a variable that identifies the score, and then also tells my computer that you're going to be starting at 0. As I continue to program or code the game, I would add other things to increase or even also decrease the score, but that variable is used to start your score at a certain number. Same thing with number of lives. If I want you to start with 3 lives for a game, and every time you die you lose a life, I'm going to set my variable to have you start at 3 lives. Okay, so take just a few minutes here. This video, you don't have to click off. I'm going to play it for you, so you don't have to juggle back and forth. But this is going to give you guys an important introduction to variables and how they're used in coding. So make sure that you watch this video. Keep watching my video. That's going to show this next video, and then once this video is over, then you'll come back to the instruction. Hope that made sense. All right. So hopefully that gave you guys a little information and introduction into what variables are. If you go to number 2 here, that's the same video you just watched, so you can hit continue. And then you're going to get into your activities to go through lesson 5, working with different types of variables. Okay, so they're going to have you do some different things as you go through each step here. All of these are to prepare you for when you start coding your own game, okay, or as you're going through these next several lessons and getting more in depth into coding games, coding, things like score, things like lives, where you want things to show up. All those things are used by using these variables. So you could see here, again, just a couple things before you start going through this lesson. Over here in your toolbox, you again have your drawing tool. This one, you only have an ellipse block to draw a circle. Last lesson, you had a math toolbox where it had the random number. For lesson 5 here, you only have a variables. Okay, so all of these, if you haven't noticed already, are color coordinated. So your drawing blocks are this blue color. Your variables, as you go through the rest of these lessons, are going to be purple. Your math is going to be orange, and then there's going to be some yellow. Okay, so all those things coincide with the color of the block. So you can see here that we have a variable block and the ellipse block. Okay, so this variable block, we've named it, or they've named it X position, and then they've set this at 100. Now, what I can do is I can change all these other values, but as long as I have this variable name, which is X position, in my, here for example, my X value, then that's always going to be at 100. Okay, so this variable where it's at 100 is always going to be 100. Okay, as long as I have this name in here. Now, if I wanted to change, you could see, so for example, when I run this, you could see the X position would be at 100. If I show the grid right here, you could see the very dead center is 100. Okay, if I change that, I have to reset it, and then I can change my value. So let's say 250. That should put it right here, 250. So when I run that, you can see that the center is 250. Okay. Now the thing to keep in mind again, as you're going through these, is the name of your variable has to match when you put it in to your other block. So if I change this to X value, for example, you can see that these don't add up. Okay, so this X value variable hasn't been what they call, or what they say is being called, so you haven't called it yet. Now if I come in here and change it to X value, now these two match. Run it, and you can see that it does the same thing. Okay, so make sure every time you create a variable, when you name it, like the video said, you want to name it whatever it is that it corresponds to. Okay, that the name of your variable, whenever you want to call it, that you type in the exact same name. Okay, if you get an error, that could be why. All right, and you can see that that if you did have an error, it would tell you why. Okay, so that is the first. For this one, it says the variable x position used to store the x coordinate of the circle. So you can see how that works, and as you change the value, it changes the location of your x value or x position. All right, so as you go through these, again, make sure that you are following the instructions. Okay, you can see on this one that x position, what's the y, they have them both called here. Okay, you're going to have to answer a question. 7 is going to give you a little bit more information about variables. So you may want to create a variable that has to do with size. You may want to do a variable that has to do with, score. So what you'll see as you go through this is you create a variable. So for this example, you create a size variable. Then you're going to have, which we didn't have in the first lesson or first activity, you'll have another block where you can assign that value. So I can create a variable called size. Then I assign that size variable at 100, and then it would essentially, every time I call that, like here in my ellipse, then it would assign the value of 100 to that circle, okay, as the height and the width. All right, so there's going to be some other things. You'll have some, variable size equals. You'll have variable size equals and then size. So as you go through these, you're going to have to just kind of play around